What's up, everybody? This is the All Equity Podcast, and I have a very special guest here today. This is a friend of mine. James Layman is here. Woo!
Is up? What is up?
Hey,
What is up?
background too. They cheered.
They're already cheering? That's awesome. That's a lot of pressure on us.
Well, James, I'd love for the people to hear a little bit about where you're from, what you currently do, and something cool about yourself.
Okay, so what I do, I work for the Association of Washington Student Leaders, which is our state student leadership and program organization. I do a lot of stuff. It's one of those like catch-all jobs where it's like I can't really say I do one thing. I do a lot of stuff. So some curriculum writing, sometimes I'm facilitating programs, sometimes I'm just staring at my computer doing data management stuff. So it's a catch, like it does a lot of different things. But I get to work with a lot of schools and teachers and principals, and we're connected with our principals organization. So I kind of say like my job is how can we make the school experience just better for people, right? And that's just kind of the lens I look at it through. And my job is somewhere in the midst of all of that. Where I'm from,
You repping?
I'm here in the beautiful Spokane, Washington. This is where I kind of have always been. I only went to college like 35 minutes away. And and then a fact, right?
Yes.
Or one cool thing.
Yes.
One cool thing. I used to teach band. How about that?
Woo! Yeah, I was in band too, 7th grade. What up?
Wait, only in 7th grade?
Actually, I only did it 1 year. It was expensive. Yeah, I only did 7th grade for real talk.
Wait, that's all you need. You can check the box. You can say you did it.
I made my parents pay for drum lessons, so even more expensive.
Oh, you were a drummer.
Yeah.
Dude.
I was one of those kids. Oh my God. Now that I look back at it, I realize like I was kind of a little punk.
I think that's inherently like the charm of like so there's like there's a slight edge in the best way possible, but there's a slight edge.
I'd agree. So man, tell me for you right now with COVID and your job and your family, what seems to be top of mind the most for you in this situation this year?
I think for me, it's just been like pre-COVID, like I was on the road anywhere from like 20 to 25 days a month, right? Like traveling all through the state, working with different schools, like nonstop. And then, March 15th happened or 13th. That was right. And I really I had one mother obligation that weekend, and then I kind of have really been home since March 15th, right, with a few exceptions. So I think the big thing is just like slowing down, and I think we get used to just running a million miles an hour, and I think COVID has been, not that there's anything good about COVID, but I think the experience I think the experience has been one where it's like, dude, it's okay to like slow down. You don't need to like, push yourself that hard all the time. So I think for me, it's been like, I feel good. Like, I don't think I've ever been as like rested as I am.
Really?
Like, I'm still working crazy long days, but I'm in my own bed every single night. And the wear and tear of traveling all the time isn't on me. And so, man, I think just slowing down.
Yeah, I think for me, slowing down, like I kind of had to slow down.
You had to.
Yeah, so it's one of those weird things because, like, I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn, so I wasn't really trying to do that. But universe has a funny way of slowing your ass down when you need to, if that's what's required of you to get to the next level.
Yeah, and my experience isn't anything like yours, but it was definitely one of those things like, oh man, I was really pushing myself hard. Like being on the road 20 days a month, like
Were you eating fast food too?
well out, yeah, wherever, right? Yeah.
That would suck.
Yeah. So you're just you're just always in this constant state of going without ever
Right.
just being. And now it's like I get the even though I'm working hard, but I'm still like I get to be in my own bed. You know, I get to eat my own food and just like be. So I think that's been a blessing for me this year.
For you being Black, what does that really mean to you in this time?
Well, to be honest, like
Yeah.
I don't know how comfortable I would be being out and about 25 days a month right now, right? And last week I had to travel, and it was a different experience than pre June.
What explain that? Because I think a lot of people don't understand what's so different. People are gonna be like, "Well, what's so different? You're in your car. What was pinpointed for you that you know?"
When I got gas, for example, and there was somebody wearing a Blue Lives Matter shirt, which okay, but the way they stared a hole through me, it wasn't. They didn't just look at me; they looked through me. And those are two very different delineations of somebody just seeing you versus somebody looking right through you, right? And so it was.
What does that feel like?
It was unsettling. It's very unsettling because I've been home throughout all. So in some ways, it's like I feel protected within my own walls. To now all of a sudden, okay, I'm away from home. I don't, if something were to happen, you start going through that. There is the same trip. There was a car that went by and backfired or something, but it sounded like gunshots. And James 6 months ago would have been like, "Oh, that was a car backfiring." James right now is like, "What was that? What is going on? Am I safe?"
Wow.
So yeah, it's just a different experience leaving my home right now. The question is like, am I going to come home? That's a really dark and cryptic reality, but I think it is a reality, right?
And the sad part, man, is like, I think a lot of people, they would hear that and then they're going to go, well, are you in the South?
Yep.
Are you what were you doing? Were you driving fast?
Yes.
Right. And it's like, okay, first of all, if that's honestly your reaction to what James is saying, really think this through for a second. If James was driving fast, just like every other white person in a Ferrari does that mean that people are allowed to then stare at them like they're about to murder them? No, not at all.
No. And listen, I'm not even on here saying that any of the encounters I had were with anybody who was a bad person.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the experience in itself made me feel
right. And that's valid.
Made me feel uncomfortable. Because I think people, when they listen to these things, it's really easy to manipulate. And James, well, what James said is he saw somebody in a Blue Lives Matter shirt, and this person,
right.
No, I didn't say that. I said this person stared a hole through me.
Yeah.
That's my perspective. That's my reality. That's what I felt.
Right.
No, I'm telling you, I felt uncomfortable. Whether that was their intention or not, it made me feel uncomfortable. I am not saying that was a bad person, nothing. I'm just saying that experience for me was a jarring experience. So I try to point that out because I don't want my words to be misconstrued or people to say, "Oh, well, he is saying this." No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that experience made me uncomfortable, right? And
so what's crazy about that too is I could say the same thing. I went to the gas station about a week ago, And you know, with my condition, sometimes I forget things like where's my toothbrush, right? I forget little things like that. So I was in my girlfriend's car, which is a brand new car, and I forgot how to open the gas tank. Okay. Four elderly white people
Hmm.
with nice cars staring me down hard,
Yeah.
right in my face. Not the kind of, not the, oh, he looks like he's still in his car because he can't remember how to open it. No, they were like looking over the top of their hood type shit,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You, there's no way to misconstrue that as, first of all, I'm uncomfortable. Second of all, I don't know.
Yep.
So automatically, you know, my thoughts are racing. Okay, what do I need to do? You know, do I need to, so then I called my girl. I was like, hey, um, I'm forgetting how to open the tank. Help me how to open it real quick. And then memory kicked right back in. I remembered, oh, it's right here. Open it. Boom. Good to go. Filling up the tank. Still staring at me.
Yeah.
Still staring at me.
Yeah.
And this is in just for context too for people. James, what city were you in when that happened to you?
That experience was in North Bend.
North Bend. And particularly, what type of people live in North Bend? For those that don't know.
Upper middle class, white.
Okay.
You know, it's I would say it's a fairly, you know, middle class white. You know, there's an outlet mall that's really, you know, well known in the state, but it would, you know, it's a predominantly white part of our state.
Got you. And so I was in Winville, Washington, which is probably about 20 miles away from Medina, Washington, which is the city where Bill Gates lives. So for context wise, wealth wise, I was in a very affluent area, wine country, um, you know, but here's the thing, that's the city I grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of thousands of people know who I am. Thousands of people know who I am because I'm one of the only and I'm one of the most successful. So obviously, I've been experiencing that my whole life already.
Yes.
I've been doing wild, you know, whatever. Like even when I was a teenager in Winville, Washington, you know, or Baffa, Washington, in that area, it's like, well, can I be a teenager and do things reckless like my white buddies? No, I can't.
No. No.
Mom gonna slap the shit out of you.
You know, you just, but like to your point, like I love what you like. So here's the thing: you and I have both talked about the look, right?
Right.
That there's a palpable look, and I think it's important. Like you know what that look is early on because it's the same look you get when you go to a store and people follow you,
Mm-hmm.
or and here, like I want to point this out to people because I think they're like, well, people don't follow you. It's guided and it looks different. Like let me tell you something. I've been to the Target store that's 3 minutes from my home. They know me, but the amount of times people ask, like, "Do you need anything? Do you need anything? Do you?" Folks, it's the same thing, right? Like you're making like you're very well making me aware that you see me and that I need to see you, right? And so I just
That's the key right there. And that I need to see you.
yeah.
That's the key.
That's the key, right? And so I think it's an interesting thing that you and I both talked about. There's a look and you know it. It's a very, how do you know? You just like a lifetime of experience of
Yep.
seeing people just see you and people look at you. And there's a very different, there's a clear cut delineation between those two.
And so when someone gives you a look that does not make you feel uncomfortable, what does that feel like? What does that look like?
Like a good look?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like, I think it's like they see James before they see a black man.
But they're not colorblind, or are they colorblind?
No. And I think they see, oh, okay, well, but I think they see me as a person and then they attach everything else. Okay, so James is black. Like it's one of those things you can't hide. And
No.
folks, I'm a black man. Like let's own it. Let's not shy away from it. Like you don't need to well, I don't see you as a black person. Well, you should, because I am. But, but I think when people see me as James, first and foremost, which is a very, like, and it's very palpable when it's just like, this is James. James happens, like, and yes, I'm black, but versus the other way around. There's a black guy. Oh, his name is James versus.
Or is this? Oh, yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, and see, when
just,
they attach the other things, I think that's where the danger hits.
Completely. And to flip the script, it's like,
right.
When I see a cop, right? Because, people, I think there's this misconception here that black people hate cops. No, we don't hate cops, right? But I see a human before I see anything else. And I would just hope the same is in return, that you see a human before you see anything else. And I think that that's the giant paradox that people like forget.
Let's talk about that for a sec. Because, playing devil's advocate, someone's going to go, well, you're not speaking for all black people. Obviously, black people are not a monolith. We all know that. But what James is really saying is that, do you really think that every single black person hates cops the way the media says it?
Nope. And once again, to flip the script, I don't think every cop hates black people.
Right.
Right. And we, like, my frustrations in the last month have been people thinking that people have to pick sides between, or if you pick this side, then this means you're diametrically like opposed to. It's like, no. No, right? No, it's like, have there been horrific things? Yes. And those are the things that need to be addressed. But I also don't think it's fair on any side to blame one collective group of people as being bad.
Okay. So then when people say things like the system of white supremacy within police stations in the United States, that system, what's your thoughts on the system versus the people?
Well, I don't, and people ask me this all the time, and I think there is no way, there's just no way that we can argue the fact that our systems were not set up for every single person to be treated equal or fair, right? And I've said, if your privileges that you live have never been on the line for people to vote on, you're living pretty good, right? Like, who else has been viewed as 3/5 of a person?
You know what's crazy? What's crazy is people forget how bad the people who were here before Christopher Columbus and all, right?
Yeah.
The Native Americans, like, so I'm gonna keep it real. I feel like they were done the dirtiest.
They were, by far.
By far. Like, we were done dirty. No, don't get it twisted, but they were literally wiped out of the face of an entire land, and then people were put above them.
Right.
That were brought in.
Right. 100%. And it's like, so I don't think that we can, I don't think there's a way to live without acknowledging the fact that our past and the way our systems have been built have not been fair and equitable. Now, do I sit and blame people who are our age for the injustices of our system being broken? No, because I get it. It wasn't your fault. But I think we globally have a responsibility to do better, right? And to do right for the next generation. So I hate the argument, and I don't use the word hate like often, but I do hate the argument of, well, I can't be held responsible for what my ancestors did.
Do you think so? Then let's break that down. So what? Say you're, Tom, 35, white male. What is that what is Tom's responsibility in this current climate? Is it to say something, or is it to be quiet? What do you feel if you were Tom, or what would you want from a white ally like Tom?
So two things there. One, I have a weird thing with the word ally because I think people like use it to like either shield themselves, like I'm all knowing, so I don't,
Okay.
and I'm an ally, so I don't. There's nothing left for me to learn, or
Mm.
or they use it as like a scapegoat for things. So it's a tricky thing to like. Who anointed you an ally? Like
Got it.
I'm an ally for McDonald's fries. McDonald's didn't anoint me that. So I think it's one of those things of people need to be careful how they use that. But the other thing is, and here's what I tell people: it's like I don't want anybody to ever think that through equity work that they need to change who they are. I think I think the goal of equity work or our life work is that we have moments of, oh, I never thought about it that way. Oh,
Interesting.
that's a new lens. I never thought about it that way. Oh, I've been presented with these new facts.
Yeah.
Okay, I never thought about it that way. And I think the more that people have those moments and open themselves up to those moments, that's where conversations and change begins.
Okay, so you would want that Tom to
Mhm.
be open, but not necessarily wave the ally flag. That's what you're saying.
I don't need a merit badge of
Okay.
every like equity thing you've done
Yeah.
to to show me anything, right?
And
The
why do
best
you feel like you don't need that? I
because
don't feel like I need it either, but I want people to understand why you as a black person feel like you don't need that.
I think it's performative and fake. Like I
Mm.
and I also think that people use that as here's my laundry list of things I've done, and they use that as like, well, I've done it, so I'm good, rather than this is an ongoing thing. Nobody's ever gonna reach, this is not equity work and our lives of like bettering people. It's not an escape room. You don't get to the end.
I love that. I love that. It's
And
not an
yeah,
escape room. Say that again. Say that again.
well, all this equity work and all of this stuff of making of growing as it's not an escape room. You don't get a picture at the end that you've done it, right? There's no way out of this. Like this is constant work. A year from now we're going to have hopefully very different conversations because we've all gained new perspectives in this year, so now we're able to add new perspectives to those perspectives next year, and in 2 years we can add new perspectives to like it's ongoing. And so for me, the best thing that I can hear people say is, I never thought of it that way. Now, I am not saying you need to, I want to change what you're going to do in a voting booth, or I want to change, like, no, like, I think that's also a weird thing that people assume that it's about changing people. It's not about changing people. It's about opening minds and perspectives.
Mm. Man, ooh, you came ready today. Woo! An escape room. Equity work is not an escape room.
But no, but I feel like it's weird when people read a book, they post, look what book I read. Cool. And now what? Like, and I'm not, listen,
Mm.
I'm not knocking people for going and doing the work. Keep doing it. But I do question,
Why you need the cookie?
yeah, you know what I mean? That it's just one of those things where I'm like, to me, the work is ongoing. Um, and it's not, look, I've done it. Like, no, like
Mm-hmm.
it should be, okay, I've done this and now I'm doing this, right? And
Yeah.
it's hard work is hard work, right? And it just takes a long time. And so like people are gonna be like, James is dogging people who are reading books. I am not. I am not. Keep reading, keep doing stuff. But I also just say that to me, the best conversations I've had are where people just say, wow, I never thought of it that way.
Mm.
Or even when I tell that to people of, wow, yeah, there's a new learning for me that I just learned. I to me, those are like the best conversations. Those are way more powerful than um let's just talk about the book we just read.
Who taught you to think like this?
Dude, I'm me. um, I was that kid who I just thought differently. Like,
Mm. And
um,
how did you know it was different? What was the differentiator?
that a lot of times, when I would say things, people would look at me like, "Where's that coming from?" Or people
Mm.
telling me at a young age that you think you're really not that I'm super smart, but just that you're thinking in a different way than other people are. And it's funny. My adoptive mom, when she was adopting my sister, they had to do like a home study before she could adopt another child. And I read it just the other day. So this was me when I was like 2, and my mom had to explain to the adoption agency about myself and my brother. And the thing she said about me was, so I was 2, mind you, like 2.5. She's like, James sits and stores information about people and then uses it for later revelation and insight. And I'm like, and I think that's always so. At 2,
Wow.
like I was 2, and I read that the other day, and I'm like, that's what I do. I sit and I study and I observe, and then I, you know me. We've had several conversations. I just let it go,
Right.
but I think I think I'm a watcher and an observer first before James is ever going to comment on anything. Like I'm going to like watch and observe and study first, and then we just go.
So one of the things that people need to know about you is your background in terms of how you were brought up, um, your parents, your origin. I think a lot of people are afraid to be honest about how they grew up
Yeah.
because they have like a sense of shame.
Yes. Yeah.
So could you tell people what experience you had?
Yeah. So I was adopted. Basically right at birth, and I was born in Georgia and landed here in Spokane, Washington, to a white woman who would become my mother. Right. And
Mm.
the way that I best can describe her is like a hippie, but in the 80s. Just like,
Wow.
just a very progressive, forward thinking, driven. I think now, if we put her in the same context of 2020, people would, she would be like a pioneer in like the women's movement, and like, because she was doing all of that, but in the 80s, where
Got it.
we as a society just didn't have the language to put that on people yet, right?
Mm-hmm.
We probably would have said in the 80s she was outspoken and
Okay.
uncouth, but really she was just a very forward thinker. So, grew up in a single mother household, and she would later adopt 2 other children who became my siblings, and a pretty healthy sized family, aunts and uncles and grandparents and stuff. But
And are you the only sibling with dark skin out of your siblings?
no, so we're all black,
Okay.
all 3 different shades, right? My brother and I are probably closer, but my sister's she's lighter. But
Gotcha.
the weird thing is people are like, you all 3 look so much alike, and for our entire lives, we're like,
Wow.
no, we don't, right?
Wait a minute. Why do you? That's okay. That blows my mind for a second. So you don't have the same mom,
Or we don't
and
have the
people or
same
dad, and people say you look the same.
yes.
What? Okay, you got to break that down, man. Like what you've been hearing that your whole life?
Yeah.
People saying that about you and your
my
siblings?
my brother, he's only 11 months younger than me.
Yeah.
He was significantly just bigger than me basically
Mm-hmm.
our entire lives. Just he was just ripped and jacked and all of this stuff, and I was the short kid up until like our 20s, where I finally caught him. But people would be like, oh, you 2 are twins, and I was like, no, we're 11 months apart, right? And my sister, somebody told me in high school, I really want to date your sister, but she just looks too much like you. And I'm like, okay, 1, weird, and 2, no, and 3, yeah, don't date my sister, right? But no,
Whoa.
but it's just one of those. I don't think people really mean that we look alike. I think I think they don't know what to say. A, and B, what I think they mean is we've acquired a lot of similar mannerisms and characteristics, which is what happens when you
live with
when you
people.
live together. But what they say is you all look the same. But as I thought about it growing older, it's like I think what they meant was we
Is
passed.
that a microaggression? Do you feel, or what do you think that is?
Yes,
Because
and
was it ever said by someone that loved you?
yeah. But
Wow.
it's just one of those. It's an interesting dynamic, right? But it's we're siblings, right? And we have all the same inside jokes and things
Hmm.
that siblings have. We have the same bumps and scrapes that siblings get. We have the same, hey, don't tell mom about this injury type thing. Like we have all of that, but there's just that added dimensionality of us not sharing genetics, right?
Yeah.
Um, but once again, our next door neighbors, white couple who had one biological child and adopted 2 black kids. My mom's best friend adopted 1 black daughter and a daughter from China. So we thought adoption was the most normal thing most of
Wow.
growing up, right? We just, oh, this is what people do, right? You just adopt black kids, but not in a negative way. Just, oh, this is just what people do. And then we
Really?
moved between my 7th grade year and 8th grade year to a different part of Spokane, and it wasn't as readily seen. Not that
Hmm.
it was bad. It wasn't bad, but it was
Yeah.
definitely like, wait, your mom's white, your aunt's white, like, wait, what?
It's pause. It's pause.
Yes, there's the moment of, wait, what? Versus, oh, okay.
Okay. And then when you got to high school and you're really becoming a man and coming into your own, what were some of the things that people would say about you when they saw you with your mom?
Uh, I think by high school, I think it was pretty well known because I didn't hide it, and my mom she wasn't at a lot of stuff. But I think when like she was around or my aunt and uncle or whatever, people were like,
Hmm.
"Wait, what? Okay, whatever." But it wasn't. So it was never like this, like, "What is that?" But it was
Okay.
definitely there was the pause of, "Wait, what?" Right? And
Right.
so no, it's an interesting dynamic. My sister and I we're really close, and we share a lot of like the same humor and things like that. But then like I've reconnected with my biological family, which
Wow.
which is also like on the other extreme when you've never been around genetics ever. So think about that, never being around anybody that you share genetics with, and then
Wow.
all of a sudden you're thrust into, I'm in Georgia surrounded by people that like I share genetics with and I look like, and my biological mom, her and I look like we could be twins. like
Wow.
I'll never forget the first time meeting her, and we're sitting on the couch, and I looked over at her and she like took her glasses off to like scratch her eye, and it was like looking in a mirror, and it
Wow.
legitimately like was almost like a jarring thing because I've never seen that before, right? And so it was just like, what? So it's really cool. And now my sister, she lives in Everett, Washington with her family,
Whoa.
and we're really close, and we text and talk daily, every week. And but it's an interesting dichotomy to everything else.
And what advice would you give kids with white adopted parents who may have positive, negative, neutral feelings that they're having difficulty coping with?
That it's all about, you've got to have conversations, and it's you can't shy away from the fact that they're white and you're black, or you're white and they're like whatever. Like, you can't shy away from that. I think it can become really easy to just fall in the facade of, and I don't want to call it a facade per se, but I do. If you never acknowledge it, I think that's damaging. Just because you have to, right? There was an experience that we encountered as a family a few weeks ago at the lake, where there was a Trump boat rally, right? And people are going to be like, "Oh, you're saying?" No, I'm just saying. Once again, there were aspects of it that made me feel uncomfortable, right? And I'm not going to speak for my sister, but I know I was uncomfortable, and she was there too. And it kind of escalated to this. I don't want to say this giant. There was some tension in the family about it, and I think how it escalated was about whose political parties people support. But I think really the heart of it was James just felt uncomfortable, right? And I don't think we didn't really circle the drain about, like, hey, like, there's a black guy in your family, in our family. Like, we have to acknowledge that this made James uncomfortable, right? And it was, everything's good. Everything's fine. We're good. But I think in that moment, we don't have that conversation a lot. We don't, as a family, we just kind of, we've dealt with a lot of stuff in our family, but I don't think that we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. When we have the conversations, I think they're good. But so I would just encourage families to have those conversations, because you have to.
Do you feel like, so transitioning a little bit into your current role,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like you see yourself in some of the kids that you work with?
Man, yes. Like, because of your mom, I'm leading this Black male brotherhood group, right? And there are some just awesome young men who are kind of living through the same experience, right? And we get to just share that. And I would say that there was probably a time in my life where I didn't want to talk about it, just because I'm like, what do I
want to keep it to yourself? Yeah.
What do I have to say about it that anybody cares about, right? And not that I think that I'm all knowing, but I'm somebody, I now look at it as I do have a lived experience that we can talk about. And so my role now, I don't think there's not been a day since June where I've not had a conversation at some point during the day about all of this, about the social issues in America, how this parlays into families, how this parlays into schools, how this parlays into our individual identity, into culture. Like, so I have not gone a day and I've, checked it. Like, I talk about it every day. Yeah, man, that's what we do.
I feel like for me that with my clients, what's there's so many different ways to say something where people might get triggered before what's real, the meat of what's being said can get to. Like, people want to look at things for the surface level. Like, maybe someone's going to say, James had a lot of things go on being adopted in this particular way, but they only look at that part.
Yes.
But there's way more than that. There's positive, there's neutral, there's negative, there's right. Same with Black people, that we're not a monolith.
No.
And I want to know from you, man, like, the kids that that you see the most promise in? What qualities can you recognize in their communication that says that kid, he's going to be somebody important that changes people's lives, and he's going to, or he or she is going to do something great?
Well, I think there are two things that I readily see with specifically our young individuals. One, it's the ones who recognize, if not me, then who, right? When it just comes to whatever it is, like, if not me, then who? And there's this generation of young individuals who are just driven, right? And it's like they see what things could be and get out of their way because they're gonna make it happen. So I would say there's that quality, number one. And I think the other quality is, and this is more of my like call to adults, of there's another group of young people who just need to know that people believe in them. And I think that they're just waiting for that moment for somebody to say, hey, I see you and I believe in you.
Wow.
And I think that we assume
that they already have that.
We assume that young people have that, right? Well, they're in their phones and they're this, and it's like no. Like we have to get so much beyond that. Like I compare people to, and I don't know if this is even a good analogy or not, but I've used it. It's like when I used to like buy CDs, right? And
yeah.
And it's different now because you can just like go and buy the song that you like, and you can stream it, download it, whatever. But we used to have to like buy cassettes and CDs or whatever, right? And the song that you really liked was like track number 4 or 5.
Always track 4 or 7, right, every time.
But you had to like listen to other stuff to get to the one that was really well known. And I think people are like that too. We focus in on the thing that we know to be really true about them, and we forget that there's so much more there, right? Like, how many times have people listened to a CD or a cassette and you found a song that you didn't even know was on there and you fell in love with it because you actually like took the time to hear it, right? And I think people are the same way, and I think we look at people very one-dimensional as, oh, that's Kevin. Kevin's an awesome person. He's got it going on. Boom, done, right? Instead of, this is a part of Kevin that I see, but what else is there? And I think we as adults need to do better about saying, what else is there? And how can we go treasure hunting in our schools and in our world and find individuals and just give them that much belief in themselves?
And so when you instill belief in a kid, or mentor somebody, what does that look like? And for other Black and brown mentors, coaches, teachers, what type of interaction is, one, warranted and appropriate, and two, the best? Like, if you could go above and beyond, how would you support these Black and brown kids like that?
I mean, one, we have to, I think the best thing we can do for anybody is meet them where they're at.
Okay.
Listen to them. We need to listen before we respond, not assume that we have all of the answers. I think that's a big thing too, of assuming that just because I'm a Black male who's older than the students, the people in this group, that I have all the answers for them, or that you have all the answers for them, right? I have a perspective, you have a perspective, they have their perspectives, and hopefully we can find common ground. But I'm also never afraid to be like, I don't even know what to say about that.
I think too many people don't want to say that. They don't want to say, I don't know what to say, because they feel like that somehow makes them less of a leader or a mentor.
Right. And here's a story from last week. So we have this student group, and this student, I had emailed their principal and said, hey, we would like some of your students to come be a part of this. And the student emailed the principal this email that was like, hey, I saw all the information. there's a word that makes me really uncomfortable in this application, and it made me press pause, and now I'm kind of just unsure. The principal forwarded it to me. I immediately reach out like, no, let's talk. Like, let's talk. Like, I want to, me being me, it's like, oh, there's something on there that caused the student to hit the pause button and question it. I want to know what that is. One, so I can grow. Like, because my intent was never to cause harm. But if there was something on there that I didn't see, that I have a blind spot about, like, I want to be made aware of my blind spot. So I talked to the student, and she just basically was like, hey, you have the word articulate. And I think the word that you want students to be articulate. But if somebody, that's ableism. Because if somebody has a speech impediment, or somebody's bilingual or trilingual, like, articulate might not be the best word there.
Wow.
She's like, and they just said, what I think you mean is that you want them to be effective communicators. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what, yes. Now, I could see some adults just being like, okay, so a kid's mad, whatever, right?
Exactly. It's like, brush it over. We can't have everything for everybody, right?
Me, I'm like, no, tell me, right? And then, and I'm not.
And that's an appropriate, in your eyes, that's, for educators, administrators, that is an appropriate adjustment to make right there.
Yeah, but the catch-all was, my next line to her was this: are you still interested in being in the student group? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. My mom always taught me that you never know when you're being interviewed. This was your interview. You're now a part of this group. I don't need a letter of recommendation. Like, this was, you stepped into yourself. This was awesome. You educated me. And now I'm going to tell every single person I know about what you taught me. Right. And so I think there we get when we can make students our teachers, I think that's where the power is. Because then they get to walk the world saying, hey, I have a story, I have an experience that means something. Right? This student last week just sent an email like, hey, this word makes me uncomfortable. Here we are a week later, and you and I are sitting here talking about it, right? And the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that are obviously going to listen to this are also now going to hear it too, right? But I think that that's a really, I just think the way that we grow is when we empower other people to step into themselves.
Water break. When you empower a kid to step into themselves, and the step happens to be negative, as an administrator, as a coach, as a leader, what is the appropriate action? Is it always discipline? Is it always varies, depending on the severity of what the negative step into themselves was? Like, for example, a kid, they stepped into themselves when something like that happens, and they decided they're going to be more rude because that's who they are.
Yeah.
Right. So where is the line, and how do you?
I just have a difficult time with the word punish. My question is always, how can we learn ourselves out of this?
Learn out of it.
How can we educate ourselves out of this? If it's conflict, if it's whatever, if somebody makes a poor decision, how can we learn our way out of this? Like, what can we learn from this? How can we educate ourselves out of this? How can we grow out of this, right? Rather than, you did something bad, I'm now going to punish. Give me a break. Like, no, like, how can we learn ourselves out of this? Okay, so I was rude. Okay, everybody's been rude at some point. Okay, so the next time that we're feeling that way, what can we do? What are some other things that we could do? And hey, maybe it is you just set up like a dummy email account, and you send all of your like strongly worded emails to that one, just so you can get it out, right? Like, go for it. And then when you like been able to like return yourself to yourself, then it might be a way, that might be when you engage. But how can we learn ourselves out of it? How can we lead ourselves out of it? Like,
because one of the things for sure is like definitely with the whole, well, black and brown kids, they act out, so I'm going to punish them more. Like that. Here's where I really want to go is when you hear people going down that rhetoric line.
Yeah.
What? Because I know you've been in some rooms. Woo! But what are they really trying to say? And what is the appropriate action? Say a black kid does something really disruptive in class.
And I think there's a difference between you're a bad kid and you made a bad decision. And I think that line gets obliterated all the time. Hey, Kevin, you did this. This was not your best decision. That does not mean that you're a bad person. It means that this choice you made, this behavior you did, we need to examine your behavior or your action, not you. You're still in
which the black part is part of the you, not the action.
Right. And I think when we say we need to punish people, no. You don't want to punish people. You want to address the action. Not the person. And we need to separate those two things. Yes, dude, in high school, like, did I color outside the lines? Like, listen, I didn't do anything criminal, but did I print off pickup lines using school a school computer? Yes, I did. Right? Did I do those? Yes. Right? Yep, that was me. Did I have to sit in the principal's office and be told, hey, don't do this anymore? You're absolutely right, I did. But my assistant principal, Mrs. Sorensen, if she's listening, she never punished me, James. She always made it very clear, this has nothing to do with you, James. I need your behavior to be redirected. Right? We need to address this. And so I never left there feeling like James as a person was bad.
And what did that make you become as a man? Because you understood that difference.
Well, I believed in myself. And it just, my mom used to always tell me we all make choices, right? And I was able to be like, okay, I didn't make the best choice. And I could honor the fact I didn't make the best choice, but that choice does not define me as James or as a black man. That was a choice that, yes, James made, but let's address my behavior, my choice. But I sometimes think when we need to punish them. Okay, well, who's them? And we don't need to punish people. Let's address the behaviors. Let's address the choices, right? All behavior is a cry for there's more stuff going on, right? Behavior is a wake-up call to, that is somebody literally screaming, ask me how I am. That's all behavior is, right? And I think we got to punish it. No, you need to ask questions. When you see something going on, like, that's your invitation to be like, hey, Kevin, how are you? Fine.
See what you just did right there when you said, how are you? The way you said it. I think educators, they're asking, what I've seen a lot of is, hey, Josh, how's your day going today?
Yeah, can't be that. It's got to be the same thing. Hey, Kevin. Hey, how are you? So here's the thing. Kids know that right, that something's going on, but they're just waiting to be asked, right? And I heard this before, and I'll say it again. All anybody wants in this world is to know when it's going to be about them. And behavior is just a cry for somebody, please ask me how I am. Right? And the thing is, we do it with kids. I have a niece who's almost 8 and a nephew who's 5, and when they color outside the lines, they're not a bad kid. It's just they're really tired. They've got stuff going on. But we forget that when people get older.
Wow.
It's true.
Man, I need to reflect on that. I need to, man, because I was just thinking about when I was in college, man, and people that know me from the college days, I was a wild boy. I was on Rebel Town, and that had nothing to do with who I am, everything to do with what I was going through.
Right. And I think now, and when I look back on things, the moments that I colored outside the lines, the moment that I was not who the person that I would like to be, it was all times where just things weren't going right. And all I was really needing is somebody just to say, James, how are you? And what's going on? Okay, cool. Let's talk it through. Like, let's talk about that. And then we can go from there. So I just think we need to do that for kids and students. And it's not about them being bad. It's let's address what happened, the thing. It's challenge facts, not people, right? And it's address facts, not people, right? It's all of those things. Like, we got to be people-centered. And whenever I have conversations with people, the very first thing, before we even address the thing, I want to just do a temperature check of how are they doing. Because 90% of it needs to be about what they're really going through. Only 10%, they know they screwed up.
Oh, that's another thing is these kids, they know they're not. People act like because they're young, they're not aware. No.
When you did something, you knew this, I screwed up. You knew. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
My nephew, who's 5, he has that guilty look on his face when he right? So it's like we aren't doing anybody any favors when we're sitting there just going hard on when rather it needs to be like, how are you? What is going on? Like, how can we help you? What do you need?
And I think, yeah.
How can we set up like the bumpers in bowling? How can we set up the bumpers to keep you from going in the gutter? What bumpers do you need, right? Do you need just a check-in? Do you just need somebody to talk to? What bumpers do you need? And let's help get you those bumpers. And I think that we don't do that enough. It's just, Kevin, guess what you did? You're suspended. See you in versus, hey man, what do you need?
Yeah. That's real. That's real, man. I don't got nothing to add to that. Got nothing to add to that. I think people are gonna watch that back and there was a lot of gems in that, what you just said. A lot of gems. I think people don't want to be honest.
That's good because I don't remember what I just said, so I can watch it back. So I can watch
that part.
I think whatever I just said.
Awesome. Well, James, let the people know a little bit about your organization, where they can stay in touch with you, and if they want to contact you, what's the best way?
Yeah, AWSL, it's awsleaders.org. My email is jamesl@awsp.org. Hit me up. Like, I'll talk with anybody, right? Like, that's what we do. Okay. And my man Kevin is the greatest human being ever. We're kindred spirits, and he's just the best.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
You're the best.
I appreciate it, man. I know you're not bullshitting either, because a lot of people that do that, oh, you're great and stuff. But see, what people don't understand about James is James and I both have really high expectations of excellence.
Yeah.
Very high. So he's not just saying that lightly, and I don't say that lightly about him either. I've been in rooms with people that make $50 million, been in rooms with people who have changed the world. Like, James is a different type of person. And it's about the integrity and the thinking, the thought process. It's his mind that makes him brilliant. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we'll be doing another one of these soon.
Oh, you know it.
Woo! It's lit. All right, y'all. Until next time, and we'll see you next time.